All right, what's happening? What's happening, guys? It is Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. This morning, we're going to talk about, for episode 499, we're going to talk about the challenge of consistency. Over 499 episodes of this show, there are definitely things that happen more frequently than you guys probably realize that watch and listen that challenge the consistency of this show, that challenge my ability to show up and my ability to do this and to stay consistent. And then the thoughts and the connections of all the things that and emotions that come along with being inconsistent, right? When you have to miss for a period of time or a day or whatever it is, consistency is a big thing in life, and the challenge of consistency is real. And so I thought for episode 499, as we approach episode 500 here, that would be a good topic to cover. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Let's get started.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
All right, what's happening, guys? Happy Tuesday to you. Hope you guys are having an awesome morning. This morning, we're going to talk a lot about consistency, about just the challenge of being consistent at anything in this life and what those challenges are, and then the things that are connected to those challenges, right? Like, when we think about something that we want to do consistently over a long period of time, there are significant challenges in life that stand in the way of doing that. And, as I was thinking about what to talk about here for episode 499, tomorrow, episode 500, consistency was one of the things that kept ringing in my mind. One of the most frequent things that I hear about when people talk to me about this show, about this podcast, is the consistency of being at, now episode 499. And they ask, how do you do it? And, I don't know that I've ever given a really great answer to that because it's hard to answer but I'm going to try to unpack it for you this morning, because I think that the whole concept of consistency is one of the things that people have the most challenges with. And we all have a challenge with consistency in some area of our lives, like whether it's working out every day, whether it's doing this podcast every day, whether it's eating right. The challenge of consistency is real. And for all of us, the challenge of consistency really exists because life is hard. And there's a million things in this world today that can distract us. And then when we get distracted and we don't deliver on something that we said we would, when we are inconsistent, then we get to a point of overthinking things or throwing everything out the window because we missed that one day, or we missed that one thing, or we were inconsistent for a period of time. And what I've learned from studying people who have really mastered consistency, probably at a higher level than I have, is that they just never stop, regardless of what the circumstances they're presented with are. And so when you look at it, I used to, in the 100 and something episodes, it used to really bother me if I was on the road and I couldn't do this podcast. And I would think like, oh man, what do people think? Or, I don't want to let people down. What if somebody needs me today? All the normal things that I think we all think when we're doing something, right? If you're serving others or you're doing something, there's a lot of thoughts that go through your mind when you aren't able to deliver on that. And working through that in my life has really helped me in every other aspect of my life as well. It's been amazing to be able to take what I've learned from the challenge of consistency of doing this show every day and apply it to other areas of my life. Being able, it has taught me how to say no to things, how to be willing to pivot and not feel guilty about, having to make a decision to do something else. It's a real challenge for all of us. And I'm sure all of you in some way, shape, or form can relate to what I'm saying. We're all pulled in a bunch of different directions. And as we're pulled in different directions, the challenge of consistency really ratchets up, right? It gets more and more intense. Like, how do we juggle all of these things? And, when you think about business and life and family and, what people call balance, work-life balance, whatever people call it these days, learning to juggle all of these things is part of life. It's part of how we have to learn to show up regardless of circumstances, right? And so when I think back across 499 episodes, I don't know how many days that I've actually not done this show, but there have been times when I wasn't feeling well. There have been times when I lost my voice. Today, I don't have the best voice, but I'm still able to be here. But there's times where you have to make a decision to pivot, to do something different, to not deliver on the promise that you made because of some circumstance. And I think that as we learn to stay consistent through those challenges, through those trials and tribulations, we really learn some of the secrets of life, right? Like, when you think about what it means to be consistent, to be somebody that people can depend on. As I always say, I strive to be the steady hand for people, like a person that people can come to when they have challenge or adversity, and get solid advice, get sound advice, and know that I'll be there, and that is important to me. And I think of everything else that I have learned through this show, that lesson of how to stay consistent under the most challenging circumstances is probably one of the greatest lessons that I've learned. Is, give yourself some grace when you can't do something. It's very hard to be consistent, especially when you have a crazy schedule and all these things going on in the world, technology that sometimes doesn't always cooperate. There's days that, I get to the office and nothing works right. And it, causes me to be a handful of minutes late. And I want you guys to know this, like, when I'm sitting here sometimes and nothing's working right, and I'm going to be, 10 minutes late or 5 minutes late getting on the show, the thought always crosses my mind of whether to actually do it or not. And I think that's something that hopefully a lot of you can relate to, right? You say, well, I'm going to be late, or I'm going to this, or so maybe I should just not do it. And as I've learned to push through that, to show up regardless of whether I'm late or whether it has to be done at noon or whether, whatever that is, if I'm able to show up, I'm going to show up. As I've learned to embrace that, as I've learned to embrace the challenges that consistency presents, I've become better in every aspect of my life. I've become a father that shows up no matter what, no matter how tired I am, no matter how frustrated I might be with something else in my life. When my kids need something, I show up, right? No matter what. And I was always pretty good at it, but now it's a switch that flips in my mind the minute that, something presents itself that's difficult. I've learned that the challenge and adversity is really what builds us. It is those things that are difficult to maintain consistency with that really teach us the most about how to be there for others, how to show up, and how to be the best version of ourselves. And that's what we all pursue, right? And the challenge of consistency in your own life will unveil to you somewhat of who you are in this moment, right? Like, how often can you push through that adversity and do it anyway? And how often do you give yourself the excuse, the break to say, well, I did it 498 times. So do I have to show up on the 499th day? Or can I just say, nothing worked right this morning. I'm going to just throw in the towel for today and show up tomorrow. And as you bear down on those excuses in your life and the stories that you tell yourself, and you learn to do it anyway, the challenge of consistency gets slightly better. It gets slightly less. You have slightly less pressure on you that you actually consider not doing it. And that, folks, is one of the greatest lessons that we can learn, is to quiet that voice in our head and to persevere through whatever adversity and challenge sits in front of us and show up anyway. Be consistent. Be that person that people look to and say, that person shows up. They show up. They're going to be there. They're going to do what they say they're going to do. And again, there's times where you can't always do what you say you're going to do, and you got to give yourself some grace when that happens, because none of us are perfect. We have things that come up that we can't show up for, and the way that you will learn to overcome the challenge of consistency is when you know for sure that you're giving it everything you've got, and that you show up for people, and you have a self-confidence around that allows you to give yourself grace pretty quickly because of how you show up consistently in the rest of your life. So this is really, it's interconnected in so many different ways of life. How consistent you are and how you show up and how you feel about yourself as a result of that, I believe is one of the greatest things that we can learn in life. And this show, hanging out with you guys every single morning, 499 times. I shouldn't say every single morning, but most mornings, 499 times, has taught me so much. And so thank you guys for showing up and giving me a reason to show up here every morning and to learn about myself, to share some of the knowledge and experiences that I've been able to collect over my lifetime, and to really help me learn what the challenge of consistency can do for my own life. And hopefully you guys can learn something from this message this morning that will help you look at your own life and find ways to be more consistent. Consistency breeds self-confidence. It gives you an opportunity to get better in any aspect of your life that you can think of. And so I challenge you to think about that today, to think about what that looks like for you. However consistent you are today, how can you be more consistent? How can you become more organized? How can you commit to something that you've been putting off for a long period of time and show people what consistency can do? I am not perfect in consistency in every area of my life, but I am in pursuit of it, hot pursuit of it. And, I've gotten a lot right over the last handful of years when it comes to consistency, but we're never perfect. The challenge and adversity that faces us determines that, right? It allows us not to get comfortable, and encourages us not to get comfortable, because in every area of your life, there's always a lever that needs to be pulled to be able to balance yourself back into what you aspire to be. And so for me, I've gotten a lot right, but there's still some other areas of my life that consistency has avoided me. And, this show has helped me get better and learn how to do that, right? It's a mental switch that you got to flip in order to check the next box. And so I ask you guys to think about that this morning, for me and for yourself, to think about what it looks like when you are more consistent. What does it look like when you show up differently for your family? What does it look like when you show up differently for those people around you at work? What does it look like when you show up differently for those people in your church, in your life, in your family, in every aspect, right? And the world needs us, man. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. And so the world needs safe places to land and steady hands to get people through some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis. And so consistency is everything. How you show up, how your heart performs in those moments that are most challenging, right? When people are attacking you, when the world seems like everything is against you, how consistent you are in the love and care and grace you extend to others will define you over a long period of time. And, I look back at my life and I'm amazed at what consistency has done. And in so many different areas, in my faith, in my family, in my business. And there's some other boxes that I've still yet to check, but they're on the list. The target has been set, and it's just about mastering something else in life. And so I hope you guys think about that today, what it looks like for your own life, What are the areas you've been promising yourself to improve upon that you haven't just yet? And attack those, and let's attack them together. I hope you guys have an awesome Tuesday. I hope this message was valuable to you. If it was, please share it out to your pages. Please send it to a friend, DM it to somebody. There's a million different ways to share this show. Tomorrow morning is episode number 500. It's kind of a crazy milestone for me to think about. As crazy as that number is, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal at the same time either, right? It's like, this is what happens when you get consistent, you get in a routine, and you just show up and do it. And so I will see you guys again tomorrow morning for episode 500 of Morning Perspective. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this show. And I'll see you tomorrow morning.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.